Hi there, I'm Lebuchang and welcome to Mzansibizness. In today's video, I'll be talking about one of the most powerful families in South Africa, who some say run the South African government from the shadows, the Oppenheimers. For 85 years up until 2012, this family occupied a controlling spot in the world's diamonds, controlling about 85 to 90% of the global diamond trade. And this family have a net worth of over $9 billion and have investments in various sectors that span from Africa to Europe. This family has achieved its wealth in some questionable ways, which include artificially fixing the price of diamonds, an alleged assassination of a certain prime minister, as well as buying its way into African political parties to be able to shape the political landscape in South Africa, amongst other things. In this video, I'll be talking about how this family built its over 100-year-old empire, the questionable means used to get there, the family's influence in the '94 elections that liberated people of color politically but doomed them economically, as well as a group known as the ANC Billionaires that emerged post-elections. I'll also be talking about the investments that this family has made over the years, and the whole Tambo private terminal saga, as well as concluding with how they influence the political landscape today. So without further ado, let's jump into this insane story. Before we begin, a couple of weeks ago I released a video on how the Guptas captured the South African state, and to mixed reviews. A lot of positive reviews, thanks so much for that by the way, but at the same time, a lot of people thought I was shying away from the real state capture that was done by the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers. One brew even went as far as to say I'm in Ramaphosa's pockets. And this one brew even went as far as to even swear at me. It's all love though. I just found it all super hilarious. So I hope this video can put that issue to bed. Okay, so the Oppenheimer legacy begins with the man known as Ernest Oppenheimer. He was born in 1880 in the Friedberg German Empire and is the son of Edward Oppenheimer, a cigar merchant. Ernest began working at age 17 when he entered Dunkelsborough and Company, a diamond brokerage firm in London. And this guy just had a knack for the diamond trade. He was excellent with his job that by 1902, at the age of 22, he was sent to South Africa to represent the company as a buyer in Kimberley. Kimberley was a major diamond town, and because of the booming diamond trade, was the economic hub at the time, and also the first stock exchange was known to be established there around that time. Ernest would even go on to become the mayor of Kimberley from 1912 to 1915, and this is where I would say the Oppenheimers first got into politics. In this role, he helped raise the manpower for the Kimberley Regiment for service during World War I. Ernest would soon meet a man known as William Lincoln Arnold, an American engineer and chairman of Transvaal Coal Trust, as well as a number of other coal mines, and these two guys would become good friends. They would launch the Anglo-American Corporation, with financial assistance from American tycoon J.P. Morgan. In 1919, 2 years after its launch, Anglo-Americans started purchasing diamond mines in South Africa, and by doing this, they were stepping on the toes of giant mining monopoly, De Beers. De Beers was huge. By 1902, the company controlled 90% of the world's rough diamond production and distribution. In 1924, Ernest strengthened his political ties once again, as he was elected to the House of Assembly as the member for Kimberley, a position he would hold up until 1938. 1927, Ernest manages to gain control of their biggest competitor, the De Beers Diamond Empire, and over the years would build and consolidate this company into a global monopoly over the world's diamond industry, effectively creating a diamond cartel. He gained the chairmanship of De Beers in 1929, and at this point, Ernest is controlling and managing two of the biggest diamond mining companies in the world. He was a strong leader and a titan of a businessman, but he has been accused of some pretty serious things. Under his chairmanship, he has been accused of artificially inflating diamond prices by not releasing industrial diamonds to the public, therefore creating rarity, and that in turn driving up the price of diamonds. De Beers and other mining corporations have also been accused, along with the Belgian government, Congo's secret forces, along with the CIA, of being part of a plot that assassinated Congo Prime Minister Patrice Luamba. Yo guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. As you can see, I'm talking about the CIA here, and those brews don't play. They can have me tracked in an instant and also have me assassinated. But anyway, back to this assassination plot. After the fall of white rule in Congo, Patrice Lumumba was elected as Congo's first black prime minister. But just 2 months in his stint, he was assassinated by a firing squad, which was allegedly financed by the mining companies and the Belgian and US government. His dream of a united, democratic, pan-Africanist Congo with a centralized government saw him as a political threat. And since Congo was also rich with diamonds, he was vocal about having more black ownership in the diamond mines in Congo, which obviously signified a threat to the De Beers diamond monopoly. Then there's obviously the whole blood diamond situations as well. Blood diamonds or conflict diamonds are diamonds that are mined in war zone areas and proceeds being used to fund war efforts. And because De Beers controlled nearly all of the world's diamonds trade, it's pretty obvious that they partook in this. From diamonds, De Beers would expand into gold by purchasing gold mines in South Africa, platinum and steel, as well as paper products. Then Harry Oppenheimer comes into the story. He also joined Anglo-American and he was involved in politics from 1948 to 1957 as part of the United Party. The United Party was the biggest opposition of the National Party, which won the 1948 elections, and with it came the apartheid regime that implemented segregation through various acts. By 1957 though, he had left politics to take over the family business and was now in charge of De Beers and Anglo-American. And Harry was a visionary. He came through with interesting marketing campaigns portraying diamonds as a form of affection and diamonds being a girl's best friend, shaping consumer perception of diamonds. De Beers would also expand significantly under his watch, including into Asia, Europe, Canada, Australia, and further into Africa. Anglo-American would even have stakes in South African breweries, SAB, investments in hotels, chemicals and explosives, finance companies, media companies, and were even able to snap up Ford and Barclays Bank South African divisions on the cheap when Western countries were being pressured to divest from South Africa in the 1980s. At its peak in the 1980s, the Anglo-American Corporation controlled over 50% of the companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. When combined with Rupert's Rembrandt Group, 83% of the listings on the JSE were controlled by just these two companies. Harry was also a visionary in the sense that he could see how the political landscape in South Africa was shifting. He had left politics back in 1957, but behind the scenes he was supporting progressive parties. He would finance the anti-apartheid Progressive Federal Party, which over the years has merged into the DA. And also, it is said that the IFP party has historical ties to the Oppenheimer empire through its founding president, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who accepted a 5 million rand donation from Harry Oppenheimer in the 70s to establish Mangosuthu Technikon, currently known as Mangosuthu University of Technology. Also around that time in 1976, the Urban Foundation was formed following the 1976 uprising in black communities. The world was beginning to condemn the apartheid regime's methods and philosophy. Harry Oppenheimer and Anton Rupert were instrumental in forming this group that will also include Cyril Ramaphosa and Anglo-Transvaal Mines Consolidated boss Clive Manal, amongst others. They will come up with a strategy for incremental reform, basically to change the system over time without jeopardizing stability. The Urban Foundation would also play a role in the normalization of black participation in the mainstream economy. By 1982, Harry would resign from Anglo-American, and in 1984 from De Beers, and Nicky Oppenheimer would take over. Just a year earlier in 1981, please take this next part with a grain of salt, as I'm reading verbatim here. Nelson Mandela was released from Robben Island alone and taken to Portsmouth Prison, where he was brought new shoes and a new suit was cut for him. He was removed from other political prisoners, including those he was close to, like Walter Sisulu and other Rivonia treason trialists. It was in 1981 that a process of secret talks and negotiations started in a smoke-filled room where there was horse trading. I mention this because I'm just trying to find the earliest point that these secret talks started to occur. Official records would show Mandela was sent to Portsmouth in 1982. In 1985, the first delegation of Oppenheimer's businessmen visited the ANC in Lusaka. And also, the first set of secret talks would begin between F.W. de Klerk and Mandela. There's also chats that Nelson Mandela died in prison in 1985 and was replaced by a clone, but that's a whole rabbit hole of its own. In 1998, a group known as CBM was established. Its main aim was to create dialogue between the huge corporations and black political leaders. It is said that the CBM eventually became heavily influenced by Anglo, having a number of Anglo companies under it, but other companies that had representation included Eskom, Clive Manel's Anglo Vel, Barlow Rand, a mining giant, and Netco, which has since become Nedbank and was run by Chris Liebenberg, who later became Madiba's first finance minister. Madiba would eventually be released in 1990 though, and talks about ending apartheid will become more official, but on and off due to things like the Sebokeng massacre and Chris Hani's assassination, amongst others. From the early 90s until 1992, a lot of ANC policy documents emphasized the need for growth through redistribution. And even Mandela would talk that it's part of the ANC's plan to nationalize mines, banks, and monopoly industries. But also at that time, something sinister was happening in the background. It is known that Nelson Mandela and Harry Oppenheimer would meet regularly for lunch, and the main corporations of the mineral energy complex that included Anglo American, the Transvaal mining corporations, and De Beers met regularly with some of the leaders of the ANC and one of the Oppenheimer's estates. It's obviously unclear what went down in these talks, but during these meetings, a compromise would be reached between white politicians, a leadership core of the ANC, the mining corporations, as well as the American and British pressure groups, in the form of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Mandela was also hosted and close to the Manal family, Transvaal Mining Corporation owners, which was one of the top 6 mining corporations in South Africa. And by mid-1992, when economic documents of the ANC were published, the phrase growth through redistribution was mysteriously left out, and ever since then, the ANC has never been vocal about the issue. This in turn has led South Africa to become one of the most unequal countries in the world, ravaged by poverty and serial unemployment. The trade and financial liberalization that occurred after the end of apartheid and the failure to redistribute land equally are factors in those dynamics. By 1994, though, the Reconstruction and Development Program, RDP, was launched as the ANC's main manifesto coming into the 1994 elections, promising 5 million houses as well as jobs. And if this program was a success or not is debatable, because unemployment rates have even increased ever since the ANC took charge. So by the time Nelson Mandela came into power, these corporations would have struck deals that would favor them and their businesses. And with this comes a sad reality that some people feel Nelson Mandela sold his own people out. Like, don't get me wrong, I think politically it was the right thing to do, but economically it doomed these people. As well as this country. It was just always going to be a situation where the rich got richer. What also emerged from this is a group known as the ANC Billionaires, who were the first to be handed BEE deals. This group consists of Cyril Ramaphosa, Patrice Motsepe, Saki Mokozoma, amongst others. The first BEE deal was initiated by Sanlam, which is a company with deep Afrikaner history. As you can see what the abbreviation stands for, and I'm not about to say all of that. Talk started in 1992, but the deal was finalized in 1993, exactly a year before Nelson Mandela was sworn in as head of state. Sanlam did this first major BEE deal when it sold 10% of Metropolitan Life to a consortium called Metropolitan Holdings, led by Soweto Dr. Nthato Motlana. Cyril Ramaphosa was next to benefit when in 1995, Anglo American unbundled some of its other companies, including Johnnick Holdings, which had stakes in SAB and Toyota, amongst others. Anglo American's platinum interest was spun out under Anglo American Platinum, Amplat, and the company's interest in metal and gold will fall under a company known as JCI. Anglo said it would sell 35% stakes in Johnnick and JCI to black investors and retain only about 12% in each company. A company known as New Africa Investments Limited, which was led by Cyril Ramaphosa, would finally clinch the deal in 1996, buying a 35% stake in Johnnick for 2.6 billion rands. Ramaphosa would eventually leave this New Africa Investments company and create his own black empowerment investment company called MCI, or nowadays known as Shanduka, and would benefit from a whole host of BEE deals that would make him a very wealthy man. I have a full video on this, if that may be of interest to you. Then we have Mzee Khumalo. This man would form the Khumalo Africa Mining Group, and would acquire Anglo American's unbundled JCI company for 2.9 billion rands. A deal that some say he massively overpaid for. Vusi Kanyile, someone who Anglo paid for his studies abroad and would then go on to work for them as an accountant. This bro was an excellent number cruncher and was highly respected by Anglo, but he would later leave to be ANC Treasury General in 1990. He came up with the idea of forming an ANC investment vehicle, and the Tebe Investment Corporation was established in 1992, a black-owned investment firm, with its major holder being the ANC through an entity called the Watu Watu Trust. They would invest in SA Express, which was launched in 1994, one of the first small regional airlines in the country, and had investments ranging from car rental to mining to book publishing. The problem with all this is that to finance deals and the sort, where do these black businessmen have to turn? To the big capital companies, and then they end up having stakes in the companies that are meant to empower black people. The Watu Watu Trust will sell 26% of its stake in Tebe Investments to Old Mutual, Fairtrade and Sanlam in 1998. And ABSA took ownership of 15% of Tebe in 2007 after buying out Old Mutual. ANC is still a majority shareholder of Tebe Investment, but pretty much though, through this investment company, the ANC and big capital interests are aligned. Then we have Saki Mokozoma. He spent 5 years on Robben Island before he was released in 1982. Somewhere in 1992, he decided to leave politics and move into the form of business. He would join Anglo-owned SAB and also worked at Transnet before also joining New Africa Investments in an executive role, and then even becoming CEO of Safika in 2001, becoming a successful businessman in his own right. And finally guys, Patrice Motsepe, a man not involved in politics but is known to be in ANC circles. His brother-in-law is Cyril Ramaphosa and his other brother-in-law Jeff Radebe, a man who was once chairman of the ANC. 1997, Anglo's gold division handed over 7 underperforming gold-producing shafts to Patrice Motsepe's young mining company, African Rainbow Minerals. Motsepe was smart about his business though and was able to pay Anglo back the 8.2 million loan that they gave him to purchase the mines within only 3 years. He has also over the years been a generous benefactor to the ANC, donating millions of rands at fundraisers and national conferences. Tokyo Sekgoale is also someone who benefited from BEE deals. The problem with these deals is somehow these big capital companies would always get involved, and at the most, black businessmen were minority shareholders with no real say in the running of the business. It seems like these major corporations will benefit more from having black partners, like being able to receive investments more easily as well as government tenders. But most importantly, they got to keep control of their core businesses. It also seems like these broad-based deals were limited to the select few that I've mentioned and associates of those, which leaves a bitter taste in the mouths of many South Africans. Under Nicky Oppenheimer's leadership, the family massively diversified its portfolio with investments throughout various sectors. In 1998, they acquired control of Chwalu Nature Reserve after the owner passed away and left it to Harry in his will. Chwalu is the largest private game reserve in the country and is home to rare animals like the desert black rhino, Kalahari lion, and the roan antelope. In the mid-2000s, a lot of practices of the diamond industry were coming to light, popularized by the movie Blood Diamond and a song by Kanye West, Diamonds from Sierra Leone. This put increasing pressure on the Oppenheimer's diamond monopoly, and by 2012, the family sold its 40% stake in De Beers to Anglo American in a $5 billion deal. But at the same time, don't the Oppenheimers also own Anglo American? They only owned about 2% of Anglo American at that point, after selling shares in 2006 as well as 2010. 2% of a company worth billions is still a lot though, but it's safe to say they divested heavily from the diamond trade. 2011, the family formed the investment company Tana Africa Capital, which has investments across multiple sectors that include education, with schools in Morocco, the healthcare sector, with hospitals in Egypt, alcoholic beverages, with Monument Distilleries in Kenya, Monument Distilleries in Nigeria, and Kensington Limited Distilleries. These are the brands that are under Kensington Distillery. This distillery also owns a major stake in Truman and Orange, that also have a whole host of other brands under them. I mean, as you can see, the list is quite extensive. Tana Africa also has stakes in a meat processing company in Kenya, this fast-moving consumer goods product company that has these brands under it, as well as other investments in financial services, a furniture company, and a fruit company. Sundry, a grocery retailer in Nigeria, this pasta manufacturing company, which is Egypt's second largest, this frozen and cold food products company that operates in Gabon and Cote d'Ivoire, that even have a license to produce Magnum ice cream, and finally Siat Group, a company that owns palm oil and rubber plantations in 4 African countries. In 2014, the Oppenheimer started Fireblade Aviation in Johannesburg, a world-class private aviation facility for business and leisure travel, based at Tambo International. This company would later be involved in the whole controversy that included Malusi Gigaba. Apparently, Mr. Gigaba provided custom stuff and the facilities for Fireblade to have its own private terminal at OR Tambo Airport. What's worse is that this brute tried to deny it in Parliament and a court of law, and the courts ruled in the Oppenheimer's favor and found that Malusi Gigaba had lied under oath. Regardless of what Malusi Gigaba did, regardless of what Malusi Gigaba did, or apparently did, the Oppenheimers, Nicky Oppenheimer in particular, was involved in some shady things here. And this also infuriated South Africans because the super rich already own and control everything, and now they want their own private terminal? Crazy if you ask me. In 2018, they purchased a stake in GZI, a supplier of aluminium beverage cans in Nigeria. This company over the years has become the leading supplier of aluminium beverages cans in Nigeria and the rest of West Africa. And in 2020, Oppenheimer Partners invested in Harris International, one of Uganda's leading manufacturers of food and beverages, the energy sector in Ghana with Gensa Energy, and a travel company based in London known as Niara. 2021, they formed the Jan Innovation Academy with South African first Michelin star chef Jan Hendrik van der Westhuizen. That same year also opened up offices in Singapore, and Singapore has been built as a future business hub of the world. 2023, they invest in Emerald, a leading Pan-African supplier of branded promotional products that have license to produce these brands and have a regional footprint in 14 African countries. They also have stakes in medical company IDH, a company known as 4DI Capital that focuses on early-stage technology ventures in Southern and East Africa, that even have a stake in an emerging South African crypto platform, Vala, and also have investment through investment company Stockdale Street. The family also own at least 720 square miles of land across South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. This family has made so many investments over the years, so I apologize if I missed some, and there's also some investments that they prefer to keep secret. And now the empire is pretty much in the hands of this man, Jonathan Oppenheimer, who has also contributed to the family's success over the years with several investments. So how about the current state of things? In early 2024, this article by the former EFF's Floyd Shivambu was released, and it talks about how the Oppenheimer family is trying to hijack South Africa's democracy by giving donations to various political parties. So the Political Party Funding Act that prescribes all registered political parties to declare their funders helps us to get a glimpse as to where the Oppenheimers are dipping their feet politically. And according to this article, they have donated more than 20 million rand to the DA, more than 20 million rand to Action SA, as well as more than 10 million rand to Rise Mzansi. It is said that they use the DA as an instrument of white political power and Action SA and Rise Mzansi to dilute the black vote. And so in other words, as long as they're reducing the number of ANC voters, it's all good. Mr. Floyd believes that the donations by the Oppenheimers are a means towards controlling and micromanaging South Africa's democratic project, reducing South Africa's electoral democracy into a transactional democracy. Just a note, this video is focusing more on the Oppenheimers. I'll be releasing another video talking about Anglo-American and De Beers in more detail. Trust me, it makes for a fascinating story. Video on the infamous Stellenbosch Mafia in the making and coming very soon as well. One thing for sure, the Oppenheimer family understand how politics and power go hand in hand. This is a family that has survived 2 world wars, global financial meltdowns, and seem to have only gone from strength to strength. Alright, it's a wrap for this video. Glad you could join us. I'm Lebuchang, this is Mzansibizness, and I'm out. Peace.